Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Genre Equality Podcast on the Genre Equality channel. I'm Hidzir.
Hi, sir.
This is not our first episode of the new year, but this is the first Genre Equality episode that we are recording in 2021. Excited about that. We have a lot of big things to talk about, including our main topic, which is, I think, in general, if you listen to Genre Equality for any amount of time, you know that The Expanse is what we consider to be top tier sci-fi TV, at least of the modern era, and definitely of all the sci-fi shows that are currently airing. The Expanse is right up there. We'll also be talking about the third season of Star Trek Discovery, which featured a massive time jump. We'll be talking about the final season of Carmen Sandiego, season 4. We'll be talking about the His Dark Materials, second season, the final season of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Jóhann Jóhannsson's experimental sci-fi film, Last and First Man, which actually aired last year, but I just recently got a chance to catch it. It sort of slipped my radar last year. I forgot about it. And lots of other things as well, man. What are you excited to talk about this month, Faisal?
I think our first two big topics are what I'm excited to talk about, like The Expanse and this new season, the penultimate one, if I'm not wrong, right?
Penultimate, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, hopefully not lah, but as it stands now, it is penultimate, yeah.
And definitely Star Trek Discovery. Like, I think there's quite a bit for us to kind of talk about there. Even the fact that, at one point in time, Hardy and I were like, yes, Star Trek Discovery, and you were like, no, and then now, in topics. So yeah, we will definitely dive into that. I think Carmen Sandiego as well. Like our three kind of big topics it has quite a bit to unpack. So excited to dive into it.
Yes. So let's begin with, I mean, on a positive note, like we like to begin on things that we really love.
Yeah.
And in this case, we'll begin with season 5 of The Expanse, currently on Amazon Prime. As you mentioned, alluded to earlier, with the announcement last month that Amazon Prime Video's The Expanse will end after season 6, which is the next season. It's kind of bittersweet for many fans, including myself, to see the true end of the show in front of us, or so it seems. Still, it's a miracle that we got 3 more seasons of the show at all, considering Amazon's Hail Mary save after Sci-Fi's cancellation post season 3. Season 4, which was last season, the first after the move to Amazon, was a pretty ambitious change of pace. It was a terrestrial adventure taking place mostly on land, which gave the series a brand new look and feel. But now in its penultimate 5th season, The Expanse, I would say, goes in another different direction, a direction that I never thought I would see The Expanse go in again, as it gets somewhat contemplative about the nature of family and survival and the politics of radicalization, while simultaneously expanding its scope, while still getting more personal than ever. Of course, the big thing I'm talking about in season 5 is the fact that the crew of the Rocinante are separated for the entirety of the season, which is a new direction to take it. And much of the attention initially spent directed towards the scattered members of the crew, each of whom are attending to personal matters in various parts of the solar system. Only Holden and Naomi begin the season together, but it quickly becomes clear that the son, Philip, that we found out about last year will be the focus of a mission that the estranged mother must undertake alone. It's an attempt at reconciliation that brings heartfelt moments for Naomi. And kind of great insight into the extreme fringes of Delta culture. Meanwhile, Holden, Amos, Alex, Bobby, Kamina Drummer, they're all on separate courses. Nobody has met up yet as far as episode 9, which is the last episode that we saw. We have not seen the finale, but I think based on 9 episodes, we can give an accurate judgment of how good the season is. So far, I feel, although to varying extents, some I like more than others, but I feel like the idea to separate the crew seems to have paid dividends, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think the cast, the crew of the Rocinante have been so dynamic, right? Like the interpersonal relationships between them and all the adventures that they've been on. I think that they've gone through good or bad has always kind of like brought out the best and worst of them, right? And that is always a joy to watch, right? Just how deep their relationship runs and the things that they have to tackle and trying to kind of reconciliate their own kind of world worldview, depending on how you want to put it. This season, I feel like we get a very interesting look at individual characters and individual character growth arc, which I don't feel like we got as much of, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so nice just to be able to see some of my favorite characters kind of like take on like more screen time and get a bit more of their backstory, about a bit more about what they're about. There are obviously a couple of standouts. Amos continues to be my favorite, and together with Kamina Drummer, I think those are the two most compelling characters that we have.
Yeah, Amos has been MVP for the entire show, but Kamina Drama sort of rose up through the ranks to become one of the favorites this year, I think.
Yeah, I think with season four, with a much bigger kind of starring role within the series itself, I think the character of Kamina Drama has definitely become a fan favorite and one of my personal favorites as well. Such a
Mm-hmm.
complex character. What
Mm.
separating the crew has highlighted to me though is that there are some characters that are more well written than others, just in general,
Mm.
right? And when they are together, you don't feel it as much. And I'm watching season five, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, James Holden is really boring.
Holden has always, I mean, no offense to Holden, I guess, the actor who plays Holden.
Yeah,
I don't actually think it's the actor's fault. I just think that Holden has actually been the weakest point of the show, despite being the central point of the show.
right. Like, so he has been by and large a walking plot vessel for
Mm.
things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this particular season, I think him being isolated and kind of separate from everybody else, that really, really kind of shows true, right? Like even in the most kind of like compelling kind of character arcs, wasn't really about him, right? It was more about Miller being in his head than anything else,
Mm.
and it feels strange to me like how obvious that is this particular season. Like, I could forgive that because everybody else is kind of like propping up what's going on in the ship itself,
Mm-hmm.
with everybody kind of spread out and kind of pursuing their own things. Like Holden is kind of like twiddling his thumbs more or less, for large swaths of the season. And when I mean like I wanted to see more of everybody else, and what was going on there, than
Mm.
rather be stuck with him and his bemusements of what he's gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel the same exactly because Holden, okay, like to be fair to Holden, right? At least I find him boring.
yeah.
Like that means he is in my head, right?
Yeah.
But he is by no means the non-entity, the absolute zero impression that I have of Alex Kamal. Who I
Oh
literally
my
think
god.
I think of him like zero
Yeah.
time. Even
Yeah.
when he's on screen, I don't think about him. I think about Bobby, who is beside him, lah.
Yeah.
And thank God Bobby is there, lah, to
Oh
kind of
my
hold
god.
it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like how has he I mean, he's a pilot, so he's been flying under the radar, like literally and figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not gonna be around for season six or so, I hear. Right?
Yep.
I don't think I'm gonna miss the character, really, because like the acting is pretty flat, for sure. I think he's been functional in the crew setting, but on
Yep.
his own, right? Like we did get some stuff before he met up with Bobby.
Yeah. His
Man,
family. Yeah.
like really?
Mm.
So I totally understand where you're coming from. Like if there is a weaker point than Holden's vanilla-ness,
Yeah.
then Alex Kamal is definitely it.
Because in the end, right, vanilla is a flavor,
Yeah, yeah,
and Alex has no flavor. You know what I mean?
yeah. So
Flavorless.
I'm not really gonna miss him. Like other than the fact that he's supposed to be some, and I still don't understand how he in any way is an ace pilot given his history.
Mm.
But it turns out that he is, right. Um, it Other than that, it really doesn't. I don't understand his function, right? Like he's not quite Martian, not quite a part of the crew.
Mm.
Has like this kind of like family thing hanging over his head that he wants to resolve, doesn't want to resolve. There's too much waffling going around for him to be
Mm.
compelling in any measure, right? And it's so strange that um in this particular season, at least, I feel like the tertiary characters are stepping up. A lot of the
Mm.
secondary characters that we know and love have been growing substantially, and he's just kind of fallen by the wayside.
I would rank it as such. I think number one, the number one story that holds most interest to me is Amos. Number two is Kamina. Number three is Naomi.
Yeah.
And the rest are kind of just like eh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do feel like Avatarala this season doesn't get as much of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
For good reason. I think as far as the story goes, and like she has been a powerhouse for other seasons as well.
Well, the whole story of Avasarala is her dealing with irrelevancy, and I think that's the idea of the season, right?
Yep, yep.
She keeps getting back into the fold, getting thrown out of the fold. As she herself mentioned, she's burned all her bridges forward and backwards,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now she's dealing with that. I think it's important for her to deal with that before we move forward.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I mean, still, such a great character, right? Like she
Yeah.
completely dominates the screen whenever she's on it. But it's so interesting just the direction that they've decided to take with this one.
Definitely, man. Holden, of course, he's still an integral part of the plot. Like he's dealing with the stealing of the proto molecule that
Yeah.
was previously held by the belt, and all of that. The belt, the coup, by Marco Inaros, etc. Naomi is more closely tied with Marco, obviously, like, due to their shared son.
Yeah.
Amos is back on Earth with his whole subplot, which I can only call The Wire 2027. We learn more about his criminal history, his backstory in Baltimore,
Yeah.
etc. In fact, in the first couple of episodes, we see him like on the corner, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Where Wes Chatham's acting is just so quietly magnetic, as this this savage with no moral compass, yet still trying to be a good person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think his dynamic with Melba, aka Peaches, really highlights that, like his kind of moral struggle.
Yeah, yeah. I think the dynamic between the two of them is pretty fascinating, and it's been pretty fascinating playing out over the second half of the season. Just like having this strange kind of like bedfellows, right? And they're talking about this whole thing where they're a tribe of two, a very odd tribe of two, I have to say. But just having that peek into Amos's life is like a kind of like a godsend. We've always had this huge air of mystery around him, right? Like through everything. I think in season 4, especially when he loses his sight and all of that, he goes to a very, very dark place, and it's sometimes difficult to kind of understand where he's coming from. Like it's so easy to write like a moody, kind of broody, ex-military type of character. But I think like Wes Chatham and what he's done with the character is extremely compelling, and it raises a lot of questions that I'm glad they answered in season 5.
The danger of unveiling or unraveling an enigma or a mysterious, broody character like Amos is that it could go wrong. It could end up being like Anakin, right? Like you're like stripping back the mystique, or it could add layers to the character. And in the case of The Expanse, it added layers to Amos and Wes Chatham. All due respect to whoever played Anakin Park, I forgot his name, Hayden Christensen. He is a much better actor. The Expanse, adds a great deal more stakes this season as well, with Marco's asteroid terrorist plot coming into focus, Naomi's search for her son getting more exposure, Avasarala's ineffectual political machinations behind the scenes, Bobby Draper trying to uncover treachery within the Martians' military, Kamina drama, quest for vengeance, as she leads a new crew. I do have to shout out Kamina's new crew as well, with the limited screen time that they've gotten. I think they've really stood out, and I think a lot of it has to do with them casting like really likable faces in Kamina's crew. Like I would really just happily follow Kamina's crew if there is a spin-off such as that. As we mentioned, the only awkward aspect of season 5 is pretty much Alex's return to Mars, and considering the real life controversy around the actor, and perhaps some viewers would find discomfort watching him. Perhaps it's best he doesn't return for season 6, but overall, if you want like a gritty sci-fi space show, The Expanse is still the best out there. Also shout out to man, I have no idea who it slips my mind. I know who he is, but the guy who plays Marco Inaros, probably hands down the best villain The Expanse has ever had.
Yeah, easily. It's such a strange. I mean, we've got this kind of Machiavellian villain right on our hands. The first time that we're having like someone of that kind of character.
Also
show.
Killmonger, like you kind of see why he does things. I kind of root for him sometimes.
Yeah, but like, oh my god, so twisted, so sociopathic. It's really just kind of it like when you watch him on screen, right? Like the man is ridiculously handsome. And there are moments where when it suits him, his features kind of like mellow out. He shows kind of compassion, becomes this really kind of charismatic leader who's strong and sending out a message on behalf of all the Beltawandas. But like there are these moments where he's just terrifying monster,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
he just switches between those so effectively that
Hmm.
it's so scary, right? And like his relationship with Philip and Naomi is just, oh man, what a mess.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
yeah,
One of the best dynamics of season five, like, is that twisted family dynamic
yeah,
between Marco, Naomi, and Philip. Marco is, I mean, a couple of things is that he cuts a great speech. He
yeah.
looks really good.
Mm,
He is just so infinitely charismatic. And the thing that's really scary about Marco is that the things that he's saying are not wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Like his justification for essentially mass murder on a scale, that we've never seen before, on the Expanse, almost a Cylon attack on Earth kind of scale, is at the end of the day kind of justified, to be honest.
yeah.
Maybe not entirely justified, the killing of millions of innocent people, but we've seen for like 5 seasons, like how the Belters have been treated. Like, when is enough enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, exactly. Like every individual belter, right?
yeah,
From Kamina's new crew,
yeah.
and from Sin, who was actually such an underrated character this time round.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all of them echo kind of the same sentiments. Like, I don't agree, maybe with the way he's going about it, right?
Yeah.
But like he has a point, you know,
Mm.
and that's such a kind of like a dangerous thing. And I think what's going on with the Earther faction as well, on the UN faction as well, like
Mm.
for them to have made the decisions, we're not going to put any spoilers, but for them to have made the decisions that they've made, you know,
Mm.
just further proves the point, right? Like it's a no-win situation right now. Like Marco has the entire solar system in the palm of his hand, you know,
Mhm.
and right now we're just stuck in this place where, at least at episode 9, where we're just hoping the crew is going to get back together and do something about it.
Yeah.
But it feels like it might be too little too late, you know. um
I agree. I agree. The only thing that could possibly unite all three, I guess, planets, or all three factions, is an extraterrestrial invasion, which
they're kind
I
of
could
setting
see
up.
happening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which they're kind of setting up. Yeah, but it's important to set up the internal strife as well. Like the political machinations of the Expanse, to be
Mhm.
honest, is the show.
Oh,
The
well,
Expanse
absolutely.
is a political show. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like it's only the political intrigue has only gone from strength to strength and in complexity, you know, as we've gone along. Like no single player has all the answers, no single player has everything um under their belt until now, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
it completely changes the game, right? And everyone is just scrambling at the moment, and it is so interesting to watch them deal with those things while facing their personal demons at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, even with Earth, right? Like their decision to strike back at the belt and stuff like that, it's wrong, but entirely understandable. It proves Marco's point. It's a complex thing, lah.
Yeah,
To try to navigate. Nobody, like, the thing about the Expanse is nobody's completely right.
yeah.
Nobody's completely wrong,
Yeah.
lah. And it's all, everyone's functioning in a gray area. Even Marco.
Yeah, yeah, even Marco. And it's refreshing to see Avasrala as the voice of reason for
Yeah,
once,
yeah. So
right?
often she's the most aggressive, one, lah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been, we're 5 seasons in, still so good, right? We've gone like all sorts of ways and manners. You know, we've been to another galaxy altogether. We've come back, right? And we follow these people all over the place, and you know, they've decided to change direction yet again, and it is still so good.
Agreed, agreed. I do have to say though that Philip, right, is
Hmm.
such a disappointment to both his mother and father.
Yeah.
And I have, like, I don't like Philip.
Nope.
He looks like such a weakling, that like he's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Like, just kid, pick a side, lah. But I do understand that he's torn between the two. That's why he feels so weak. That's why he feels so unmoored. And I to be honest, when I watch Marco berate him, break him down, and then build him back up, that manipulation of him,
Yeah.
like, I feel for him, like, in moments like that, lah. But at the end of the day, like, Philip is just, ugh.
Yeah, I know. It's extremely annoying how quickly he switches, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh,
I get it, right, writing wise. I get
yeah.
it, character wise. It's just I don't like him, lah.
I don't know if it's the fact that we don't know him. He's not of any measure to us prior to the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no kind of like backstory there, and all we get is this entire idea that, okay, like it's between him, between his parents, right?
Yep.
More or less, and he's a non-character,
Mm.
And he's just like flipping to and fro, like he's the MacGuffin, like essentially, right, within that some particular story arc.
Mm.
And both of them are just competing for that to win him over. But it's really really annoying. I feel like because he doesn't have a backbone, so to say, like
Yeah, yeah.
it downplays that struggle between Naomi and Marco, right?
Mm.
Like there is no real prize to be had from them clashing
Mm-hmm.
when the prize is so meh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, lah. But at the same time, I do feel that maybe like Philip will continue to develop perhaps next season.
Yeah.
But at this point, like his wishy washiness, and all of that
Mm.
is explain. I can explain it away character wise. Like he's so torn between one way and the other way. His mother's way, his father's way. Does he want to go? What is the good thing? What is the right thing to do? He doesn't know, like that. The
Yeah.
internal conflict is what's holding him back.
Mhm.
Perhaps once he sees some clarity, then he can really take charge of himself. And it's easy to forget like that he's just a kid lah. But at
Yeah.
the moment he's just one of those annoying kids lah. Which so many shows has
Yeah.
lah.
Great casting
mean-
though. He really looks the part.
He looks like their son.
Yeah, he really does.
He clearly looks like half Arab, half black. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's spot on.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. Like we love the Expanse. There are some weak points here and there, but overall, it's just such a strong show. And the gamble to split the team apart. The team dynamic that's held the show together for 4 seasons. Just the gamble to split them apart and to see what it's like without the comforting energy of the ensemble playing off each other.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they tried it and it worked, and not only does it work, we get to see each main character explore the personal costs of their various crusades, and the costs of what happens after 4 seasons of saving the world.
Yeah.
We get to see them take stock of what's truly important to them, whether it's Amos's morality or Naomi's family. So this that it happens to dovetail elegantly with the broader implications of the show's overarching story is icing on the cake. Is superb plotting.
Yeah, exactly. I also want to give a shout out to Anderson Dawes, who has been gone for a while, but like his presence still haunts us. Well, it haunts Kamina at least. But like I really do miss him.
Yeah.
I really miss his character and what he brought to the table, especially in seasons 3 and 4. Yeah. So I mean, like, I think it's a standout thing if your character is long gone, but like still, the audience kind of like feels his presence there.
Definitely, man. And Fred Johnson also was in the season, also from the Wire, mind you.
Yeah.
A lot of the Belter leaders that haven't gotten a ton of screen time over the past 3 seasons still like stay in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of them are really quite superb. Like maybe with the exception of Kamal and Cass Anvar.
Yeah.
But this is excellent storytelling. Predictably, the show looks as gorgeous as ever. Like I love the different production designs for the different places that we go to.
Yes.
Like we maybe we don't get the on location vistas like we did last season. But like the cinematographers do a bang up job of differentiating the geography using a variety of aspect ratios to distinguish between a complex web of 7 to 8 different storylines set across different moons, different planets, different ships, different stations.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. I do feel like in general, since they moved to Amazon, I think there's a bit more CGI money. In general, I think we saw a lot of that in season 4 with the whole terrestrial thing going on, but like there's still some breathtaking moments, right? Like in each individual storyline, there are these breathtaking visual moments that are just kind of like a sight to behold.
Definitely. What's been your favorite episode so far?
Ooh, let me see.
Keep in mind that we have not seen the finale. We've only seen 9 of 10 episodes, so we're judging it based on that.
I think I really enjoyed Tribe. Where it was just Clarissa Mao, and Amos. Like it is so far out from what I expected from The Expanse, right? I never thought it would be on Earth. I never thought it would be in a setting like that. And that was fascinating, right? Because like these two these spacefaring kind of like adventurers that have their fair share, they've had a history and all of that, but for them to be kind of like traversing the wild, you know, and what's in that. Like it was, I think it was pretty fascinating. Look at their characters, right?
Mm.
More so than anything else. Like how different it was really stood out to me. How
It
about
was
for you?
that it was that post-apocalyptic trek through the wilderness, like in the road, something where Amos and Peaches are kind of forced to reckon with what kind of people they are.
Yeah.
There is a particular scene at the ending where Amos goes out of his way basically to set up a situation to murder someone and to take his things.
Yeah.
And he realizes that it's something that Holden or Naomi or his crew would never have let him do.
Yeah.
And then he understands that like my moral compass are the people around me.
Yeah.
I need to get back
Like,
to my crew. Like,
yeah.
That's what he was saying. Seeing Amos struggle with that. And at the same time, Amos is a pragmatist, he's a survivalist.
Yeah.
He knows how to take care of himself, but he wants more than that. Like he wants more than just to survive. He wants to be, a good person, which someone with his upbringing, as we are learning, is hard to reconcile with, lah.
Yeah.
Totally. For me, my favorite episode was I think in episode 8, primarily because I don't want to spoil anything now, but primarily because we have this long sequence that is very Vince Gilligan-esque,
Yeah.
very very Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad-esque, where we see Naomi doing something
Yeah.
for the entirety of the episode without like auditory exposition about what she's doing. We just see her trying to do something, and we're trying to figure out what she's doing.
Yeah.
It's classic like Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, like show don't tell kind of storytelling that like I haven't seen the Expanse do, but it did very well here.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, like I was pretty riveted during that sequence, right? Like just because it felt extremely visceral. Already, how she got there, right, was just like, what? Seriously? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then for her to go to such lengths, right? Because so much is at stake, with what she can do in that moment, and just the length in which that she goes just to get those things done is really quite something. Like it really shows. I was very very impressed with her performance in Dominic Tipper's performance for that particular episode. It was quite mind blowing.
Yeah, definitely, and just the way that it was shot, written, and everything, like dialogue lights. Like you saying, like, it's very Vince Gilligan, and I'm super down for that. I even Googled like how feasible it is that Naomi survived heart vacuum. Apparently, it is. Scientifically, apparently, you can survive for a couple of minutes, and plus, she has the oxygenated blood that she
which they brought it on like in episode 1, right? The hyperoxygenated blood.
So okay lah. I can believe that. Like the only thing that I don't believe about The Expanse, which is supposed to be a hard sci-fi show. The only thing I don't believe is like Amos's post-apocalyptic fate. Which how does he maintain that?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably with a hunting knife and a mirror. What I'm getting, like his beard, right? Is always perfect.
He perfect fade, perfect beard. It's like he goes to a barber that he found somewhere in the woods.
Yeah, and it's so strange because usually like with TV and movies and stuff like that, like it's the women have like this amazing hair, they've got perfect makeup all the time, no matter what. Like this particular season, at least, the women are not in good shape, right? They're not looking good on screen. But Amos, regardless of what he's doing, whether he's fighting off people or has got blood on him or going to a maximum security prison, like I mean, he looks picturesque, and that to me is just so strange.
I know, he's very old school action hero. I know he's being presented. Not that I mind, it fits Amos's character perfectly.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we cap it off, like any final thoughts, and then what are your ratings?
Okay, I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. I do feel that for once, episode 9 wasn't as impactful as we expect it to be.
Yeah, typically episode 9 is the climax, and episode 10 is like the epilogue.
Yeah, so we didn't really get that with episode 9. Well, I guess today, right? As of the time of the recording. So I'm curious to see what's so big that they had to save the entire next episode for it for.
Definitely.
Right. What kind of cliffhanger we're going to be left on, which it's a definite for sure. I have a feeling that you're right, and that they're going to have to introduce an outside threat next week. that just like pales everything into comparison, and then they'll have to kind of figure that out. They've kind of done it before, right? Like the initial, was it season 2, like when the proto molecule arc was kind of finishing. That's where they kind of had to band together, differences aside and all of that. But so much has happened since then, so I'm wondering if they go through a similar story arc, whether or not that's going to change.
Whatever happens, I hope Marco does not die. Love Marco too much. I think he has value to the show, even as an unlikely ally, even as a Hannibal Lecter-esque, we gotta work with him, kind of thing. I'm so down with Marco. I love the guy who plays him. I think like on the flip side of the antagonist side, like Marco has jumped right to the top, so I'm gonna rate this season so far an 8 out of 10. Very strong season.
Yeah, it's an 8 out of 10 for me as well. There are little things that we pick on, but I mean man, like Expanse has been strong for 5 seasons, so there's very little to complain about.
Yeah, from one spacefaring show to a different spacefaring show, we're going to talk about season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. So after Commander Burnham goes into the wormhole at the end of the second season finale, season 3 of Star Trek Discovery finds the crew of the USS Discovery landing in a far future, 930 years from now, at least from then, far from the home that they once knew, into the 32nd century. Now living in a time filled with uncertainty, the Discovery crew, along with the help of some new friends, must work together to restore hope to the Federation. Now, finally, Discovery is, I think, finally boldly going where no Star Trek show has gone before. This is the furthest into Trek's prime universe canon that we've ever seen, opening up tons of fresh possibilities. We're no longer stuck in prequel territory. Prequels are fine, but you're kind of handicapped about what you can and can't do. So season 3 functions as sort of a soft reboot for the show. So rather than filling in the gaps of where others have been before, they're finally able to grow unfettered by entrenched canon into a series that will succeed or fail as a Star Trek show on its own merits, not relying on Enterprise nostalgia or TNG nostalgia, stuff like that. So it's like old Star Trek now. Like they can finally find new things. They even have their own cats, which is like a Star Trek thing. So to set the scene, the galaxy is a much different place 930 years from now. The questions are: what happened to the Federation? What caused a massive disaster known as the Burn? When in the 31st century, nearly all dilithium suddenly exploded, killing millions of people and effectively ending warp travel. So thanks to the Burn, the Federation is virtually non-existent now, presumably having disintegrated into protectionism in the face of the ensuing resource crisis. Outside its central mysteries, Discovery is finally able to kind of return to Trek's roots of kind of exploration, I guess, finding out what's going to happen. The idea that the ship has to go out there and make friends and build bridges, not fight battles, is quintessential Trek. And now that everything is kind of new, it's teased that we can go back to this. We can go back to what makes Trek. Even familiar planets like Vulcan, like Trill, like Earth are drastically different. So we can go and find out how their culture, politics, and religions have changed, opening up whole new dynamics. We find Earth to be isolationists. We find the Trills, from DS9 and their whole symbiont culture. They've been crippled by the Burn as well. From Enterprise, eternal enemies, Orions and the Andorians are friends now and are running a crime syndicate called the Emerald Chain. The Vulcans have merged with their ancestral cousins, the Romulans. We in an episode entitled Unification Part 3, which is actually great because if you watch TNG, then because Unifications Part 1 and 2 are there. It follows Spock's journey to try to unite the Romulans and Vulcans. So I like that it's titled Unification Part 3. It's essentially a sequel. We find out that Burnham's mom is alive and part of the Kowat Milat order that we found out about in Picard. The space-time deities, the Guardians of Forever from the original series, are hiding out apparently. And the temporal war from Star Trek Enterprise apparently escalated to an extent that time travel is now banned.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting bits of canon that they've weaved into season 3. And this is stuff that just digs into the existing lore. So, there are new planets, new species, new technology, new cultures that can be introduced to. So much potential. It's so sad that they wasted all of it.
I mean, there were a lot of moments in this particular season of Discovery that were great, right?
Mm.
So many moments that, like, I think the performances or, just really kind of carried it in that moment. But my main issue is that so many of those moments weren't earned by the series in general, right? Like, for me, the biggest kind of like example of that is the whole Emperor Philippa Giorgio's redemption arc, right? That we got from those 3 particular episodes. They were fun. And I think they were resolved in one of the most kind of like powerful we've seen on Discovery, right? Just between the moments between Philippa and Michael. But at no point in time over any of the seasons prior to this, they set that up for it to have a significant payoff, right? So what's the point of having those moments, like whether it's in Unification 3, right, which is great, like it's a throwback. It gives a lot of like emotional resonance and depth to the fact that Burnham and Spock's relationship, right, to the original series as well. But so little of that gets set up, right? We are, much like Discovery, we are thrown into this new world where there are consequences, and those consequences are important and lasting, but they just find themselves in it, like there isn't enough work that's being done for that to pay off in a way that is emotionally satisfying for the viewer.
Yeah, the most emblematic, like you were saying, so many moments are unearned. It's emblematic that an ensign is promoted to captain in Tilly. That is the real microcosm of what Discovery is. It does little to nothing to right the potential that it created for itself. It did such a good job of creating potential and then wasted all. As I said in the beginning, right? It will succeed or fail on its own merits now. It has thoroughly failed. Again, it leads into battle and action and Mary Sue tropes. Star Trek is not an action-averse series because sometimes conflict is inevitable, but fights are always a last resort for Trek, which is why big battles only happens maybe once a season, twice at most. Now every episode has a shootout, a space battle, a bar fight, or whatever. Like, don't get me started on the atrocity of a finale, which makes J.J. Abrams' Trek look like fucking like Gene Roddenberry. The thing is, like, at first I kind of liked that they lean into Michael's individualistic / selfish nature. She's annoying and hateable and selfish, and drives Star Trek fans nuts with the kind of reckless proactiveness that Captain Kirk would be startled by. But at least, right, she's consistently written. Like, that is her. That's a character. It has been since episode 1. I may not like it, but that's her. It's a character trait, and I'm okay with that. So what I thought was the show was going to eventually lead to a point where she faces the consequences of her blind luck, me first approach to leadership. She, everything like so selfish, and mostly it works out because of blind luck. In the end, what really got me hating the show was that she was rewarded for it, right? She didn't face the consequences of it. She was rewarded it by being promoted captain. Goodness, overall, I do wish there was more thoughtful debates and less bang bang boom boom things. All the ethical, philosophical, legal, cultural, or religious dilemmas that they present in their Alien Planet of the Week episodes can barely be called dilemmas because they're so easily solved and so lamely constructed. That really suggests to me that these modern writers of Star Trek Discovery lack the intellectual curiosity and thoughtfulness of previous Trek writing teams, which is unfortunate.
I think the most Trek moment that we got, right, was in the negotiation room.
I was just gonna say that. Like the
right?
shining exception was Osiris' negotiations with Admiral Vance.
Yeah,
And you see, the problem is those aren't even two main characters. You
yeah,
know?
they're not two main characters. We have absolutely very little idea of what they are referring to or talking about because the series has set up so little of that, or has explained so little of what the Emerald Chain is about, of what
Mm,
the Federation's current structure is, and how they're kind of like just surviving there, right? Like it is so Michael and Discovery centric,
correct.
for by and large, right? That it's such a wasted moment. That was such a powerful scene.
It was really really well done. It was pure track. That scene
Yeah,
between Admiral Vance and Osiris was pure track. Sitting at the table, negotiating. What kind of compromises can you make morally and
yeah,
politically? And are you willing to make those compromises? Can the desperation of scarcity outweigh morality?
hmm,
Can like Osara is agreeing to outlaw slavery and walk back her quote unquote plundering of innocent pre-warp civilizations.
yeah.
In exchange, the Federation will share Discovery Spore drive technology, so that the Admiral Chain no longer needs the lithium. This whole like back and forth. What can we give you? What can you give us? Compromise or not? Pure track.
Yeah.
The like 5 minute thing that I thought was great.
Yeah.
And then like it kind of devolves into this massive space battle in the finale, which made me so sad lah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, for all of that, right, to hinge on Michael's appeal to emotion, right?
Mm.
Like, it constantly boils down to that at the end of the day, right? Like, for someone who was raised Vulcan, like, oh my God, seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
She constantly just appeals to emotion. And that's something like even her own mother gives her shit for,
Mm.
which was an amazing. That was the dressing down that she got was amazing.
Her mother
Uh,
is pure human, mind you.
Yeah, exactly, right? And like that entire sequence, on Navarre, right, where she has to go through the entire thing, like she didn't learn that lesson,
Mm.
that her mom was trying to teach her. Like she didn't learn that lesson. And she goes on to flip everything on its head again because of the exact same thing. Like she hasn't paid the price for all the consequences for some of the things that she's decided to do, right? Or the way she's decided to do that. Now, I'm not so hard up about the fact that she's promoted to captain as a reward. If anything, I think her come uppers is incoming, right?
Okay.
I feel like what they set up with her now strained relationship with Stamets is going to
Mm.
show, right? I
Mm.
do feel like her not having Jojo around anymore to kind of play off and enable her essentially is going to show, right? I
Yeah.
feel like as problematic as Tilly being promoted to the com.
She's a way better captain than Michael is.
No, exactly, right. But she
Yeah.
had her moment to shine, and she did pretty well, right?
Mm.
So there are all these moments in time. I feel though that they're setting up the fact that okay, so a large part of Michael's journey this time around is the fact that she doesn't feel at home in Discovery anymore for the first half of the season,
Yeah.
right? I have a feeling that it's going to continue to be that realization is going to dawn upon her as we go along. So I'm not too hard up about the fact that she's captain now, right? I love Saru. Don't always agree with Saru. Saru as
Mm.
captain did a decent job, but had his failings, right?
Mhm.
Him stepping out of the way now, right?
Mm.
Him not being there as Michael's kind of voice of reason, also, right, seems to set up a similar thing, right?
Yeah.
She's now where she's always believed she should be, whether or not she cares to admit it to herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the very beginning, right? You wouldn't mutiny against your captain if you didn't think that you could do a better job, right? And that's
Mhm.
happened multiple times over multiple seasons. Now that she's
Yep.
captain, she's gonna get the brunt of it. Is where
Mhm.
I think this is gonna go. I'm hoping that it's gonna go that way. Otherwise, like it's just really sad, right? Especially this season, like there were just many points in time where they build up, and it goes
Yeah.
nowhere. Or out of the blue, you have this brilliant moment that's not supported, not earned, and doesn't come off with the payoff that it's supposed to have, right? Like it's a waste.
I agree. Michael as captain is going to be as lame as her catchphrase, which is "Let's fly," which is
Yeah, I do
you know
love
uh,
that episode where Saru was trying to figure that out, though. That was one of my favorite.
Well, every captain needs a catchphrase, and let's fly. Let's say it's just miles below engage, lah, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I think like thankfully Saru, Tilly, Stamets, and the rest of the crew are kind of around to balance Burnham with their kind of warmth and kindness and
Yeah.
their think before they act worldview that makes them consummate track characters.
Mm.
The sad part is that none of them really are given a shiner because it's such the Michael show. There's never been a Star Trek show that is so one character centric.
Yeah.
I've never seen a Star Trek show like that. Even Picard wasn't just about Picard, and the fucking show was named after him.
Yeah.
So this season of Discovery puts a whole lot of moments that don't hit because, as you mentioned, the narrative didn't earn them. The exploration that I was talking about was put on the back burner once again. The Burns mystery concluded in the dumbest, no spoilers of it. It was just so fucking dumb. The dumbest way possible.
Yeah.
Michael continues to be emblematic with what's wrong with the selfishness and entitlement of modern Trek, which is why I guess at least this particular writing team does not understand how to write Trek stories. I don't get me wrong, Star Trek has always had issues with the first couple of seasons. They're always mediocre to bad.
Yeah.
Season 1 and 2 is always like, okay, it's getting there. Season 3 is when it really flies. This is worrying because this is the first season 3 I've seen from any Trek show that kind of sucked.
Yeah. Oh man. I really don't know how they're gonna do it next season, right? If this is really what they're gonna set up and it's gonna be a shit show for Michael next season. Though I doubt it, right? Like so many of the supporting characters that made Michael bearable are gone, right? Saru's out of the picture. Jojo is out of the picture. Her new love interest Booker is about as 2D as it gets.
Yeah, and through no fault of the actor, it's just the way he's written.
Yeah, it's just the way he's written. I mean, like I understand he's supposed to be an empath, he's a good character, right? Like in the sense that morally he is good. As far as we can tell. But he lacks depth and we haven't got anything from him yet. So like with all of these things, it really kind of sets up the fact that at the end of the day, the strongest personalities on Discovery right now, right, is Michael, and she's going to continue to dominate unless Tilly steps up to the plate or Stamets, steps up to the plate. And yeah, like I don't feel like that's enough to carry the show anymore.
Agreed.
So I'm gonna say that the Section 9 show,
31.
Section 31. Oh yeah, the Section 31 show. It might be far more interesting of a Trek show, than what Discovery has shown us this season.
Section 31 is essentially as a faction, as a group, they are anti-Federation morals.
Yeah.
So perfect for these modern writers, lah.
Yeah.
So at least you're not going to disgrace Federation philosophy or whatever. That's the whole point of Section 31.
Yeah.
The gray area. It's Jack Bauer shit, lah. So they can do it there with Giorgio, and it will be fine with me.
Yeah, exactly.
As I keep saying, like I don't know. This just isn't Trek for me, lah.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why this is the Trek show right now. It's not. There's nothing about it that feels Trek at all.
Yeah.
And even if Star Trek wasn't attached to the show, I still wouldn't think it's a good show.
Especially this particular season.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I mean, like it's such a waste to the premises that they came into this season was so promising, right? You get a clean slate. You have some really good actors and some decent actors, right? And then you just kind of like you kind of piss it away, and it is so sad to see that happen, right? Like I've been rooting for Discovery to grow into the show that not only brought in new Trek viewers but also had like what The Mandalorian is doing essentially, right? Right, you pay homage to what came before and you stay true to that, but at the same time, right, you appeal to this whole new generation of viewers because of the way that you approach it. Right. I had hoped that Discovery would end up being that way. But with this season, like I don't think it's going to.
No, it's not. I mean, the hope right now is either for the Section 31 show or the Strange New Worlds show that is following Captain Pike.
Yeah.
Or Picard season 2. Those are the only hopes. I kind of thrown away Discovery or already. I mean, I was inclined to like for several years, but people kept asking me to watch it. So okay. But I feel like 3 seasons is more than enough chance to have
Mhm.
given it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, yeah. Yeah. This is, man. Like I'm rating it very harshly because I'm a Star Trek person. I've seen every Star Trek show. I've seen every Star Trek movie. I've seen every Star Trek episode. Very purist. It's probably the nearest and dearest franchise to my heart. That's
Mm.
why I'm rating this a 1 out of 10.
Ooh, wow. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's just barely like you can watch it, you can have fun with it. It's not great,
Mm.
right? So I'm giving it a barely pass.
Yeah. I just, yeah. I come from a different place. It's an emotionally driven rating,
Yep.
not entirely objective, but like,
No, totally understandable. Totally
yeah,
understandable.
yeah. I echo most of the Star Trek message boards. As toxic as it's become because of Discovery, everyone is just so negative these days. I get it. I get it. Yeah. You have every right to be that negative, like, Anyways, yeah, that was Star Trek Discovery season 3. When season 4 comes along, I shall probably review it if you
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
But I'm out. Yeah.
yeah. No worries. I understand.
Okay, next up, let's go to the 4th and final season of one of our favorite kids' cartoons on Netflix, which is Carmen Sandiego. If you're a regular listener, you know that this show has consistently received high marks from us. It's
Mm.
been a stylish and enormously fun espionage crime caper romp for all ages. It follows the titular Master Thief and her sidekicks as she foils the plans of evil criminal organization Vile. The series never fails to deliver an abundance of slick heists, daring capers, and compelling character dynamics. But beyond the capers, one of the best aspects of the show is that it admirably retains its educational roots.
Mm.
Teaching its young audience about the cultures and history of various countries. From geography, art, and traditions. During every stop on Carmen's globe-trotting adventures, in this final season, Carmen and her friends race against time to thwart vile schemes for good.
Yep.
On top of that, she's going to have to operate without a vital member of a team player who has to leave temporarily to go to school. She also finds unexpected new allies as Chase Devenue, the Acme agent that's been chasing her, finally comes around to believing that Carmen is on the side of good. Yeah. So, what do you think about the final season of Carmen Sandiego?
I'm glad they kind of paid off a lot of the plot points that they did in season 3, right? Like with her trying to uncover what's going on with her family, her father and then her mother as well. I'm glad that finally played out. I think like that was a kind of really good way for it to wrap up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that there were certain portions, certain flips in the story, especially with the whole like memory wipe thing, were a bit annoying to me
Mm-hmm.
because you couldn't just explain it away. I think Gray in particular was a bit problematic in a couple of episodes, just the way that he kind of flips here and there because he's trying to like reconcile like who he was and who he is. That wasn't really quite convincing. I had a ton of fun with them going around with this whole like ancient artifact thing. I really, really kind of enjoyed that. I like the fact that as much as it's called Carmen Sandiego, that a lot of our secondary characters get a lot of airtime and development there. And it's especially nice that Singapore was mentioned this season.
We didn't get a whole episode though. We only got half an episode,
Yeah,
which
we got
bummed me out. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, like, it's better than nothing. It's always interesting to see Singapore represented in animation form.
Yeah,
Right.
shouts out to the Art Science Museum, I guess.
Yeah, Art Science Museum and some of the super trees.
Yeah.
What was it? Great Pretender also recently did an entire like half a season in Singapore as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all in all, I really really enjoyed it. I do feel like this time round it didn't feel nearly as educational
Yep.
as previous seasons, just because they needed more time to move the plot forward with everything that was going on. Yeah, but just oodles of fun, right? Like a lot of twists and turns, a lot of mystery, a lot of like capers to solve and evil machinations to unfurl. And it really, 4 seasons in, it still really really reminds me of what it felt like to play the game.
Yeah, definitely.
And that to me is amazing, right? Like bringing in totally new things, totally new characters, new stories, new backstories, new context, new adventures, but it kept to this very at its core, right? This interesting kind of like detective story that
Mm.
drew me to the game, and continues to draw me to this franchise.
I agree. It still remains enormously fun, but somewhat flawed, lah. Final season, there are a bit
Mm.
of issues, plotting wise.
Yeah,
But I think on the whole, I think kids won't really pay that much attention to stuff like that.
yeah,
It's only like for adults. Yeah. So I think like on the whole, I'm probably rating the final season a 7 out of 10.
yeah,
How about you?
yeah. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I do feel like there were a lot of things to kind of pick on. The last third did feel a bit rushed into
Mm,
the climax of the show.
yeah.
But it's all right. It's okay. Like I think the way that they ended it all, just to kind of wrap up the series itself is it's nice, right? Like it's a great adventure. You follow for 4 seasons. You've learned some stuff along the way,
Hmm.
and you've had a lot of fun. And like you can't really ask for anything more than that, right? Like
Yeah.
certainly it's not, again, right, we are living in the golden age of animation, and kids, kids cartoons are becoming so much more than that.
Hmm.
Carmen Sandiego does not reach those heights, not even close, I think.
Nope. Yep.
But it is good. It's good and it's
Mm.
fun, and my nephew loves it, and I love watching it with him, and like you can't ask for more than that, really.
Definitely, like in the top tier of children's animations for 21st century, I guess, Carmen
Mm,
Sandiego doesn't fall into it. But in terms of top tier for children's animations on
yeah.
Netflix, it's probably top tier there, like, alongside maybe Kipo, maybe Shira,
Mm,
and things like that.
mm.
I think it falls behind Shira, but it's about the same level as Kipo.
Yeah, yeah. I would think that it's around there. It's around there,
Yeah.
like as far as all the stuff that's on Netflix, that's accessible to kids, right, these days. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, there's very kind of little to complain about. Like the animation is stylish, the voice acting is great, the music is great, all the research that they do is on point. And like it's just something I would, if you have kids in your life, whether your own or for other people, and they have Netflix around and they're able to watch, I would highly recommend you check out Carmen San Diego. Maybe
Uh,
you will learn a thing or two together with them.
Definitely, man. Yeah, so it's a 7 out of 10 for us. If you have not seen Carmen Sandiego, you can watch all 4 seasons now, including an interactive choose your own adventure game on Netflix, which I encourage you to do as well.
Mm.
Next up, we'll be delving quickly into quick hits, where I talk about some of the stuff that my co-host might or might not have seen. If he has seen any, feel free to jump in. I'm going to begin quick hits with His Dark Materials Season 2, which begins after Lord Asriel has opened a bridge into a new world, and distraught over the death of her best friend, Lyra follows Ezreal into the unknown. In a strange and mysterious abandoned city, she finally meets Will, a boy from our world who is also running from a troubled past. So Lyra and Will learn that their destinies are tied
Mhm.
to reuniting Will with his father, but find that their path is constantly thwarted as a war begins to brew around them. Meanwhile, Mrs. Coulter searches for Lyra, determined to bring her home by any means necessary. Now, while I overall liked season 1, it was not a great show.
Yeah.
The HBO drama dragged at times due to stiff dialogue and an uneven story, but despite the show's flaws, it still managed to, I guess, captivate me with fantastic visuals and convincing performances. His Dark Materials already had the building blocks to potentially improve.
Hmm.
Tonally, the second season similar to the first. It's fanciful, it's weighty, but there's a sense of impending doom simmering in the background. And best of all, it looks even better now. This is a visually impressive show. Unfortunately, while season 2 remains entertaining, the show sometimes lacks a sense of fear or excitement or passion.
Hmm.
I think sadly a key element of it is that James McAvoy's Lord Asriel is not in season 2 because COVID-19 drastically altered production logistics to the
Mm.
point where McAvoy just couldn't make it in time for the shoot.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
existing footage had to be modified. They already had shot a season. They were expecting him to come in later and shoot, the additional scenes and all. He couldn't make it, so the existing footage had to be edited post to create a narrative without him. So
What? Okay.
yeah. What a challenge, right? I'm sure that must have been a giant pain in the ass and contributed greatly to the terrible pacing and momentum of the season. Season 2 isn't bad. In fact, it is a slight improvement in season 1. There is spectacle and magic and wonder here that season 1 sometimes fails to present, but it misses opportunities because of COVID, and I guess it is what it is.
Yeah.
Can't help it. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping it would pick up, but oh well.
Yeah, but production issues what to do. Next up, I'm going to talk about Last and First Man, which is the final project of Icelandic composer Jóhann Jóhannsson before he passed away in 2018. Of course, we all know his soul-stirring scores from films like Sicario, Arrival, Mandy, but this is a whole different project altogether. Last and First Man, which Jóhannsson directed as sort of a live multimedia performance, is more of a concert thing prior to his death, has been posthumously completed as a singular 70-minute sci-fi movie instead. The film draws its concept from Olaf Stapleton's 1930 speculative sci-fi novel, in which the survivors of an advanced society 2 billion years in the future sends a note documenting their utopia and the imminent destruction of that utopia in a cosmic memo to the distant past. So Stapleton's book details multiple eras of human evolution. Jóhann Jóhannsson consolidates the unconventional narrative into a 70-minute essay documentary kind of thing. Like it's a fictional documentary of sorts that's rich with existential contemplation. It's guided by Jóhannsson's ethereal score. And this dazzling apocalyptic immersion kind of blends cosmic 16mm black and white images of Yugoslavian architecture with a deadpan like Tilda Swinton voiceover, resulting in this kind of profound lyrical rumination on the end of days, what they have achieved and what they have wasted. Last and First Man doesn't adhere to a story in a traditional sense, but once the premise settles in, it guides the viewer through several haunting chapters. In Jóhannsson's telling, humanity has obtained utopia and immortality, but bears little resemblance to humanity's roots. Swinton's voiceover includes intricate details about, the bizarre simian features of this future race, how they've evolved. They have magnifying lenses affixed to their foreheads, and a ritual that involves a 20-year pregnancy followed by an infancy that lasts for 100 years and things like that. Technology has progressed to inconceivable extremes, including telepathy and deep space travel, all of which Swinton explains in measured tones, and that kind of reminds you like, what if Dr. Manhattan was narrating a documentary? It is a haunting, poignant, and highly experimental audiovisual effort from one of the great composers of our time. It is now showing at the projector. If you want to catch it, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Oh, nice.
Next up, I'm going to talk about part 4 of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Final part. Now that, back when we reviewed season 1, it was years ago, right?
Yeah.
We were intrigued by the potential of the show, Hail Satan and all that. Since then, we've been lukewarm as the show continued to lose our interest. So how does season 4 climax? With a mediocre whimper, I guess. But season kind of finds Sabrina and her allies trying to fight 8 Lovecraftian eldritch terrors, monsters, which conveniently appear at a rate of 1 per episode. Sabrina has been at its best when it deals with a contained monster of the week style plots, and the final season kind of leans into that formula with a series of cool monsters. There is the Weird, which is a primal aquatic parasite that wants to strip humanity of free will.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the DC villain Starro. There's a monster called the Uninvited, which is the manifestation of every folktale that results in people being punished for failing to show kindness to a stranger. However, the show is kind of messy, and the final stretch is very chaotic, which highlights both the show's strengths and glaring weaknesses at the same time. It's a show with way too many characters put in too many different directions, and while all of them are interesting, none of them are developed well. For every cool satanic subplot, there is an eye-rolling, inducing, high school love triangle kind of thing. The finale really doesn't do justice to any of its overstaffed ensemble. All of them are pretty good, actually. But the writing doesn't do them justice. But the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was never a perfect show.
Yeah.
But I do have to say it was a bold one, speaking with its legacy. It was never as sharply written or innovative as its inspiration, which is Buffy. Buffy was clearly the inspiration for Sabrina. Not the Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina, but this was pretty much Buffy. And showrunner Roberto Aguirre Sacasa tried to make up for the weaknesses by making it much queerer and much hornier. They never really achieved the right balance, I feel, having seen the 4 seasons.
Mhm.
But I appreciate that they tried. This is a 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay. Yeah.
It's okay. Next up, I'm gonna go on to Doctor Who's New Year's special called Revolution with Daleks. Doctor Who, in a British tradition, used to do Christmas Day specials, but throughout Jodie Whittaker's tenure, New Year's Day has been the day for the specials. So this year's entry, called Revolution of the Daleks, both concludes the cliffhanger upon which the last season ended and acts as a sequel to the 2019 New Year special Resolution, which ended with the Doctor and her familial crew blowing up the Daleks, the series' signature enemy. But as you can guess from the title, the Daleks are back. You're never going to get rid of the Daleks. What I can say is that it is unlikely to be anyone's all-time favorite Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
It won't sit proudly in the number 1 spot when listicles rank the holiday special. It's a little too navel-gazy for that because it forces you to contemplate, the scars of the Doctor's companions. The Doctor right now has been stuck in prison for 10 months, in a space prison, and the episode tackles the questions of why the Doctor is always the center of the universe when it comes to her sidekicks. Why are they following her? What are their own traumas? Do they have their own lives? Stuff like that. Should her companions stay or say goodbye?
Yeah.
So even if you don't care to chew over those kind of issues, Revolution of the Daleks is still like a semi-enjoyable hour plus of TV that ultimately chooses to wipe the slate clean. So whenever the new season comes, it is a brand new slate. You can go into it blind. So this year, this was fun, but ultimately inessential viewing. So it's a 5.5 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay.
Next up, we're going to be talking about We Can Be Heroes, which is once again directed by Robert Rodriguez. It is a follow-up to his 2005 kids flick, The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl. It's a loose sequel of sorts where the superheroes of Sharkboy and Lavagirl's generation are now super parents with super kids. The parents are abducted by aliens, so the children must cultivate their own powers in order to save the world. It has a handy-made, amateurish green screen lo-fi aesthetic that the original had, so it's kind of charming. So if you dig the kind of lo-fi style, you might dig this one. For me, I did not like the original. I found it pretty insipid. It lacks the wit and inventiveness of Robert Rodriguez's other kitsch movie franchise, Spy Kids.
Yeah.
So this one is even less inspired. It's sweet-natured, but it's ultimately forgivable by the numbers, and I think worst of all, it's kind of boring for the most part. So it's a 4 out of 10 for me.
Oh wow.
Next up, let's jump into the latest Stephen King adaptation, and not even the first adaptation of this particular title. It's The Stand. The Stand has been readapted for a new miniseries. So if you do not know, The Stand happens after a deadly virus wipes out 99% of the world's population. So there are 2 groups of survivors that end up picking sides. One side is the 108-year-old prophet Mother Abigail, who is played by Whoopi Goldberg, or the demonic Randall Flagg, played by Alexander Skarsgård, in this kind of supernatural battle between good and evil to decide the fate of mankind. That, in a nutshell, is the gist and the this adaptation of Stephen King's iconic novel. It takes a unique approach in telling the story in a non-linear fashion, one that introduces viewers not to the pandemic itself, but to the characters, the heart and soul of what the story is about. It starts after the plague, not before, and flashes back to the pandemic to get their backstories. It's a move that may not sit well with some diehard King fans, but it's one that kind of injects, I guess, a new dimension to the story.
Okay.
This version of the story more richly develops some of the key characters from the novel, and even the previous live action adaptation with Skarsgård as a particular standout. Unfortunately, it's really hard to get a grasp on what's at stake. So much of what's happening in this world is being told rather than shown. While some of the exposition is wisely left to our own imaginations, most of these like, comments by characters leave the narrative feeling hollow. The series' generous budget keeps the post-apocalyptic America looking convincing, but I feel like it's too slow-paced and muddled to keep me on the hook.
Yeah.
The performances are strong, the set pieces are cinematic, but it doesn't have the depth or sprawl of King's amazing book, which is why I'm only giving this a 6 out of 10.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Next up, we're going to talk about the live-action adaptation of a popular manga / anime called The Promised Neverland. It is a wildly popular prison break series, which Isa has talked about before on Isa's Anime Corner. So, how does this live-action adaptation fare? Well, it is faithful and it is respectable and it retains the core elements of season 1. It covers if you are not familiar, it covers the discovery of an orphanage's deadly secret. To all the way to the execution of a grand escape plan. As the orphans discover, the children are actually being raised to be sacrificial food for demons, with the orphanage as a kind of front, disguising its purpose as a farming ground.
Yeah.
Having little to no, there's no narrative deviation from the source material, means that fans will sit through this 2-hour film with a strong sense of, hey, we've seen this. And because of the condensed nature of the movie, squeezing 12 episodes into 1 2-hour movie means that we won't get the same emotional impact or development for these characters.
Yeah.
I also feel like the casting of the characters is a bit weird. They look a bit too old for this.
Yeah.
And it's such a cat and paste adaptation that I would suggest that why not you read the manga or why not you watch the anime?
Yeah.
It's a decent attempt, but nowhere near the worst anime adaptation ever made. At the same time, I do have to say that, weirdly enough, its major fault is that it sticks too close to the source material. It's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. So I did end up catching some of it. Okay. Despite the fact that I had a feeling that it wouldn't be great. So here's the thing, right? You can't squeeze an entire season into 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Not possible. Right? And that's one of its faults. And there's also something incredibly difficult to replicate when your actors aren't kids.
Yeah.
Right. There's so much more terror now. As of when we are recording this, season 2 has just started. We're a couple of episodes in, and it is terrifying and terrifyingly good. So like I'm not surprised at all if you're giving it just a 5 out of 10. But we'll talk more about that on the next genre equality.
Definitely. So yeah, I would encourage you to either read the manga or watch the anime. So why settle for a condensed version of the tale, even though it is okay?
Yeah.
But why settle for okay when the pristine, great original is there for you to watch?
Yeah.
Let's move on to Equinox, which is a new Danish series on Netflix that is actually based on a podcast. So this 6-part supernatural thriller is a suspense mystery story exploring folklore and mythology. It follows Astrid, who is a 30-ish recently separated mother of one who is also a journalist. So one evening, a disturbing call comes in, prompting a trip back home to Copenhagen to reinvestigate a tragedy that destroyed her family when she was a girl. So flashbacks place us in the summer of 1999 when Astrid's older sister Ida disappeared into thin air along with a busload of students who had just finished secondary school. So this entire bus load of students has disappeared. Here's the thing. Little Astrid wasn't surprised when the cops came knocking the bad news because she has foreseen the calamity in her dreams. Now her visions have started up again, and that shocking phone call is the shocking phone call is actually from one of the 3 students who were on that bus who somehow didn't vanish and have been scarred by their appearance. So they're still out there, harboring secrets that Astrid's mind might be able to unlock. So begins one of those like rabbit hole yarns where someone with supernatural vision seems delusional to her loved ones. You know what I mean? You've seen that before. They doubt her, but then she goes on this mission. What the Equinox does really well is explore the place of folklore and mythology within today's society. It revolves around the folktale of Ostera, who is a goddess of spring. And this goddess obsesses several characters. The series is dotted with signifiers and symbols of of the tale. There are rabbits and hares in the number 21 always lurking somewhere in the background. It soon becomes clear that through a retelling of this folk tale, Equinox is able, or is at least attempting, to dive into more philosophical thinking, such as determinism versus free will and fantasy versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's a captivating mystery that uses the supernatural to capture the different facets of grief and loss. The ending feels rushed, and the plot makes some leaps that feel, a bit unearned.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a fun binge. It's only 6 episodes. It's solid, real solid stuff, but not spectacular. It's a 6.5 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay.
Next up, I'm going to move on to Shadow in the Cloud, which is a new indie film starring Chloe Grace Moretz, who plays a female World War II pilot traveling with top secret documents on a B-17 flying fortress, who encounters an evil presence on board the flight, which is a gremlin. Shadow in the Cloud kind of kicks off with an amusing kind of Looney Tunes style cartoon about a lazy, drunken World War II pilot blaming, quote unquote, gremlins for all his problems. It's a bit of like an urban legend. Pilots like to blame gremlins as, for the issues. It's kind of cheeky and funny, and it starts things off on the right foot. Also, I thought this movie is going to be fun, but spoiler alert, it's really not. There are some attempts to have fun here, but there are so many long and plausible action beats. One character actually falls out of the plane only to be blasted back into the plane by an explosion below. and the explosion doesn't hurt the person in the slightest. It's an excruciatingly stupid movie, and that's the nicest thing I can say about it. At 83 minutes, the best thing I can say is that it's over quickly. It's a 2 out of 10 for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Outside the Wire, which is on Netflix, actually. It stars Anthony Mackie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new Netflix sci-fi movie which you may have heard of. It's set in the near future where a drone pilot is sent into a war zone and finds himself paired up with a top secret android officer on a mission to stop a nuclear attack. It is essentially, if you watch it, it's Training Day meets Terminator. Think Training Day,
yeah.
but Denzel Washington is Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
That is the premise. The thing is, right, it has none of the craft or intelligence or fun or style of either Training Day or Terminator. Mackie's performance, for better or worse, is he plays more or less the same character that he usually does. This movie is very flat. It's very dour. It has lazy writing, and it's very uninspired. It's kind of a snooze fest, to be honest. I don't know whether you caught this, but I'm giving this a 3 out of 10.
I caught 10 minutes of it and I turned it off. I think I was still trying to recover for what Mackie did to
Altered Carbon?
Altered Carbon? Yeah. Altered Carbon. So I was just like, no, this is too close to home. I'm not going to bother with this. Which I don't know if that necessarily bodes well or not well for Falcon and Winter Soldier, but we'll see. Maybe Sebastian Stan can pull him through.
In fairness to Mackie, the stuff that he's filled in can be attributed to a failure of writing also.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also he is not leading man material. I have seen flashes of quite good acting from him, particularly in a Black Mirror episode. Striking.
That I really enjoyed.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on what he is the type of actor that he's functional. He's a functional actor.
Yeah.
Solid. He can deliver what you want him to deliver, but he cannot elevate material.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, he's good enough to if you want him to, if the script is good, the direction is good, he can deliver. But if it's not, he can't elevate it. He's not like a Pacino type, or he's not a great actor. He's just he does what he's told. He's a workman-like actor.
Yeah.
So that's it for quick hits. Any of them that you're interested in seeing?
I'm definitely going to catch Last and First Man. I think it's fascinating. It's been on my list for a while. I think actually since it came out. Big fan of Jóhann Jóhannsson, and I'm so curious as to what he was working on right before he passed.
Correct.
Yeah.
The visuals of Last and First Man clearly intended to be for a concert, for a live performance. So if you come into it thinking of it like as a sci-fi film meets concert film, you will come away with it very impressed and very immersed. This is an intentional sci-fi concept film, unlike Tenet, which I treated it like a concept sci-fi film since I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, out of everything like that, that seems the most interesting. I was curious about The Stand, but I'm
Mm.
not sure if I'm gonna spend the time on that. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it, honestly.
Yeah. Last and First Man, a good recommendation. I would urge you guys to, if you live in Singapore, you can find it on the projector. If not, it's available on VOD. So yeah, go support the late Jóhann Jóhannsson. This is pretty much his last work. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. Finally, I'm gonna delve into the pull list, where this time I will recommend two new comics because I just realized, looking back at 2020, I did not talk about a single comic. It was very book heavy.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I was rediscovering books in 2020. So that reflected in my pull list. I was thought, okay, I did read some comics in the meantime, so I'm just gonna shout out a couple, two comics in particular that I really enjoyed. Firstly is a comic called We Only Find Them When They Are Dead. So in We Only Find Them When They're Dead by Ewing, the human race is dying out fast, but the gods will save it. Not through divine action, no, but because some gods have died, so we are going to deep space to harvest dead celestial bodies as last resources for a defeated galaxy.
Oh,
You know, we're actually mining dead gods,
yeah.
for food, for sustenance, for fuel. So it's set in the year 2367. It's by Boom Studios, and it's a full-on Jack Kirby cosmic sci-fi kind of thing that kind of takes the climate crisis to extremes. It imagines a future where humans have to literally strip mine giant space corpses to stay alive. It's also the first creator-owned series by L. Ewing, who is kind of a star writer at Marvel Comics, alongside Simon DeMille, who is an exceptional artist, primarily known for Power Rangers comics. So they've proven that they can bring excitement and drama to and fun to corporate IP.
Hmm.
But this new series gives them an opportunity to push even further without editorial restrictions of a Marvel or Power Rangers and things like that.
Hmm.
It's basically an inverse Galactus situation. Here we devour the space gods, not the other way around. We harvest their clothing, their flesh to survive, and now that their old worlds are gone and no longer viable, we're just forced to do this lah. So corporations have the tightest grip on resources, and there are too many ships mining too few corpses. And we follow a guy called Georges Malik, the captain of the Vihan 2, which is an autopsy ship with a crew of 4 that is barely scraping by. But Georges has a plan to escape their current state of desperation, to find the first living god. This comic is accomplishes the tricky feat of being massive in scale while still being like intimate and grounded and focusing on the mundane elements of mining life.
Hmm.
It kind of evokes Ridley Scott's Alien in its world building, keeping focus on blue collar workers who each have their own function on the crew. There's the captain, there's the coroner, the quartermaster, the engineer. They're all working together on a routine operation that helps the reader get situated with the fantastic environment. There's a constant sense of discovery, starting with the revelation of the dead god and continuing through the mining process, including what happens to if a ship goes missing in the god's territory.
Hmm.
It's great, and then what happens when a god's body hasn't been formally claimed, territorial disputes and things like that. The art also is great. It gives a propulsive motion to the proceedings. DeMille avoids conventional layouts. She places like panels on different angles that give a page a dynamic energies no matter what is happening. When the artist does incorporate like a structured grid, like the normal grid,
Hmm.
he does for a sequence showing the autopsy of the ship's crew extracting or harvesting the flesh of a god's cheek. It creates a completely different rhythm. So I like the different rhythms that the different panels gives this comic. This sequence is an intentional spotlight on the musicality of the comic book storytelling.
Mhm.
It's kind of like this 5x4 grid functioning like a time signature, and you can change the time signature to evoke different pacing, whether it's slow, whether it's fast, whether it's meticulous,
Oh.
whether it's exciting. Gorgeous book from beginning to end. The line work is slick and detailed. It doesn't sacrifice any personality. So DiMeo designs these like distinct characters and spaceships that make you want to see more about this world. Wonderfully written, wonderfully drawn comic book. One of my favorite discoveries of last year, of 2020. So we only find them when you're dead. When they're dead is a 8 out of 10 for me.
Ooh.
Still ongoing. So do check it out.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah. Next up, and finally, I'll be talking about probably the most hyped Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic there has been in a while.
Yeah.
It is called The Last Ronin, and I'm sure you've all heard of it. Have you heard of The Last Ronin?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of panels here and there.
Yeah. So there have been numerous comic stories that tell the tale of familiar heroes in their later grizzled years, like Old Man Logan. They've gone through the ringer of time, and time again and old age is starting to take their toll on them. And now it's time for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to meet their dark future. With TMNT The Last Ronin, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird are back together to tell a story about the final turtle avenging his fallen brothers. So there's only one turtle left. The other three are dead. So it takes place in this post-apocalyptic future where this last Ninja Turtle journeys back to the last remnants of civilization in order to exact revenge on the descendants of the man who took everything from him. Unfortunately for the titular Last Ronin, the man isn't just Shredder's grandson. He is the sole ruler of humanity. He's like the king of the world. So he plans on using his considerable power for the sole purpose of ending what his grandfather started, killing the Ninja Turtles. So this last surviving turtle's identity is kept a mystery.
Yeah.
Until the end of the first issue. He wears a black bandana. So the book instantly captures the spirit of like TNMT was essentially a Daredevil kind of knockoff.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
the,
it's the same like liquid.
yeah.
Same serum and all that.
The hand, the foot,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So this once again returns TMNT to very like Daredevil inspired territory with like a lot of darkness looming on the horizon. So even though this is the future, the familiar grit of early TMNT stories is very clear. The Last Ronin is extremely dark. It's very, very dark. If you're only familiar with the Turtles from TV, from movies, and things like that, you might not be ready for this. If you have been reading Turtles comics for a while, then you're familiar with the tone lah.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it's also kind of filled with some levity. There are jokes because the Last Ronin, whoever he is, I'm not going to spoil it for you, sees the ghost of the fallen turtles, as ghosts around him lah. So they're always specters around him, throwing comedic jabs, and making fun of whoever he is, and he never lets the story fall too far into the darkness lah. The ghosts are imaginary. They're funny, but it adds an extra level of poignance to the humor, because they're not there. Nevertheless, the balance of the writing team brings to the story allows the violence and the sadness to I never get gratuitous ever.
Yeah.
It's dark, but it's never too overly dark. And it never loses the heart that the Ninja Turtles books are known for. The artwork by Eastman and Esau and Isaac Escorza is particularly praiseworthy. The art is undoubtedly kind of channeling Frank Miller's style, while still having a unique identity of its own. All in all, this is I think a really great, perfect, emotional climax to a long-running, long-beloved comic franchise. It's a 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Wow, nice.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, definitely gonna check those two out.
Yeah. I have some of my. I have not read TMNT in a long time since I was a kid.
Same here. I don't know where those comics are. I used to have them.
Yeah.
So it's been like eons since that. But like Last Ronin has been getting a lot of hype since it came out. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm probably hands on that.
Particularly because Kevin Eastman, the creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, has said that this is the climax to the story. Like this is the end of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what a dark, satisfying ending it is. And such an intriguing concept too. The whole like who is the Last Ronin. You'll find out at the end of the first issue.
Yeah.
but it's a major reveal, which of course I won't tell anyone. Yeah. So yeah, those are the things that I will recommend comics wise. Next month we have one very, very, very big title to talk about,
Yep.
our headliner, so to speak. Next month we'll be delving into uh the MCU's bizarre, wonderful, and weird love letter to classic sitcoms in WandaVision. Yeah, that's our main topic, and I'm excited to talk about it. And Isa will be back with Isa's anime corner as well. What are some of the highlights that people can look forward to next month?
For Anime Corner, I'm gonna split it into kind of like two broad categories. There's a ton of returning series that we have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
My current favorites, I just mentioned Promised Neverland season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Log Horizon, which I've talked about before, is also back. So is Slime is back for another season. So there's a ton of stuff I'll be talking about. Just where the characters are at and whether or not it's still worth watching, as well as a few new series that I found really, really kind of enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
From your kind of like typical shonen stuff to some pretty offbeat workplace comedies that I found hilarious recently. But yeah, definitely a lot of stuff to cover recommendation wise, which is surprising considering that it has felt pretty lean over the last few seasons.
Yep.
But having all of them come, all like it's basically everything from the last 8 seasons or so, all the stuff that we've loved, they're all coming back at the same time, right? So that's why this
Yeah.
season is kind of stacked. But yeah, so we'll be talking about that. And we'll talk a bit about Hits, and I will talk a bit about Cells at Work and the differences between the two series that are out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Code Black and original show.
Yeah, and it is fascinating. I think we will have quite a bit to talk about in terms of the tone and how different it can be, despite the premise being the same.
Yep.
And we'll have a pretty good time of it.
Yeah, and if you wanna, tune in next month, you will enjoy me shitting on a show called The Watch, which is a Discworld spin-off. I'm not like Hardy, a big Terry Pratchett fan or whatever, but I will shit on the show. Perhaps not as hard as Star Trek because
Yeah, yeah.
I just not as invested in Discworld. But The Watch is an easily one of the shittiest show I've seen in a long time. There are
Oh,
a couple of like indie movie standouts that I want to talk about, including The Wanting Mare and Little Fish. Saint Maud is something that I'm gonna send to Isa to let him watch. Is
sweet.
an A24 horror,
Mm,
which was supposed to be released in March of last year, but has been pushed to now because of COVID. So we'll check that out. The new show, newest CW show is Superman and Lois. I'll be talking about that as well. And the Studio Ghibli's, I don't know whether this is wise, intriguing. I would say intriguing.
yeah,
Journey into CG animation in Earwig and the Witch is coming out next month also, so I'll check that out.
yeah.
It does. I don't know. It doesn't look good. I don't know.
I I don't know, man. I'll give it a chance
Yeah.
just because it's Ghibli and they haven't, like it's rare for Ghibli to have missteps, right?
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, it's I don't know. Man.
Yeah. That does not look great at all.
Yeah, so we'll
But
tune in
I'm
next
gonna give
month.
it a fair chance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tune in next month to see what we think about that.
Yeah, there's also like this. Have you seen the South Korean show? I don't know if it's a show or movie called Space Sweepers on Netflix. The trailer looked really good.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I've actually put it on my list. I haven't watched it
Nice.
yet. Yeah, I mean, like definitely, I think like between the stuff we're doing for Behold over the next couple of weeks, I should have time to catch that. It doesn't look like a very long watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Space Sweepers is something that's gonna be on quick hits. But if Isa has seen it as well, we both can discuss it. Yeah, it's actually only coming out next week, I believe. So yeah, I mean, it looks good lah. I
Mm.
haven't seen a South Korean sci-fi in a bit. So yeah, that's it for next month's genre equality. For the upcoming Behold, it's kind of specially themed.
Yep.
We have a Valentine's Day special coming up, as well as a Chinese New Year special. So keep a lookout for that. Not going to reveal what our favorite romance slash Chinese language movies are, but they will be in the title whenever they're released lah.
Yep.
So until then, this has been Hidzir.
I'm Isa.
Goodbye, guys.